plenty of students throughout the day in all of our sessions, and I'm so excited because civil and environmental engineering is such a great department, as the students here indicate and can attest to. So I'm just really excited to have all of you here. Let's see, we've got a chat here. Okay, recording. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm actually going to hand it off to Katie here in the beginning. My name is Shannon Miller. I'm the undergraduate advisor for civil and environmental engineering. This is the student panel. And so I'm going to hand it over to Katie Rodriguez from as a student ambassador for the college and let her take over from here. Thanks, Katie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. So yeah, we can all just do a quick introduction, major, what year are you, where you're from, and I also am curious to know what brought y'all to CSU and how you chose your major within civil and environmental engineering. So my name is Katie. I'm a fourth year studying environmental engineering. I also have a minor in international development. I'm from Bakersfield, California. So if y'all have any questions about being an out-of-state student, I'd be happy to chat about that. One of the reasons that I was drawn to CSU was because of the diversity in the programs. I knew that I wanted to be in engineering. However, you know, you always have those like second doubts of, okay, well, what if I don't really want to be an engineer? And so I knew at CSU having so many options and not being just a STEM university, I would feel comfortable staying at CSU just because of the community. I knew I was supposed to be at CSU. However, I was a little scared of picking engineering. And like I said, I have a minor in international development, and that was not available at any of the other universities that I looked at. I've been abroad about 20 times, and I have about half of those have been with different like humanitarian and construction engineering related projects. And so international development has tied in really nicely with environmental engineering. And I definitely would not have found this major and minor at anywhere else, and the community for sure is why I've stayed. Awesome. Sammy or Kayla, you want to take it away?
I can go next. I'm Sammy. I also work as an engineering student ambassador here. I'm in my fourth and final year studying civil engineering, and I've loved it. So all of you in this session, whatever brought you here, that inkling that civil and environmental is the best, follow it, because I agree. I think I've really enjoyed the major, and I think my motivations to choose civil engineering are very similar to Katie, because I don't know, I think initially I knew I wanted to do engineering and I wasn't really sure which type. And I immediately ruled out the types of engineering where you can't see what you're working on. So like chemical engineering, I just couldn't wrap my head around. Electrical engineering, just couldn't wrap my head around it. But I could wrap my head around like infrastructure and bridges and all these big projects that you see every single day when you drive somewhere, when you're in your house, when you're like walking around a city, when you're walking around a small town, you see it everywhere. It's everywhere. Civil engineering and environmental engineering, so important, so cool. So I landed on that, and I haven't looked back at all. I also am really interested in the international development and kind of disaster relief side of civil and environmental engineering. And I saw this documentary at the IMAX theater in Denver, if any of you have been there, and it was called Dream Big, Engineering Our World. And they had a bunch of different engineering projects, and one of them was an international development project with Bridges to Prosperity that was just super exciting and inspirational. So I said, okay, I think I've chosen the right major. And now 4 years later, I still feel like I've chosen the right major. But what drew me to CSU was I actually met up with Kayla one weekend when I was up here, because we are friends from high school, and she's a year above me. We got coffee together, and she just sort of started to talk about her experience. And as she did so, I really started to vicariously picture like myself and what my experience could be. And it really just like prompted me to choose CSU and build my own experience. And yeah, I've loved it ever since. So Kayla, do you want to go next?
Yes. So hi, everyone. My name is Kayla, and I'm in my fifth and final year studying civil engineering, and I have a minor in global environmental sustainability. And I am from Denver, Colorado. And I chose CSU because, well, originally I didn't think that I wanted to go in-state. I was pretty convinced that I wanted to go to some, well, for me, from a Colorado perspective, some fancy, cool, exciting out-of-state school, maybe in the Pacific Northwest, or I don't know, just somewhere very fun and new. My parents made me tour CSU just to have a baseline of what a college looks like. And I just, after the tour, having met like the people who gave me my tour, walking around campus, just bumping into people, everyone was so friendly and kind. And I felt like my personality and my values were just kind of, I felt like they were mirrored in what I saw at CSU. And I felt like the community, it felt like a place. I know it's cheesy, but it felt like a place where I could fit in and I could belong. And so that's why I ended up coming here. And then as far as engineering goes, and why I chose civil engineering, I knew I wanted to do something with science and math. And so I picked engineering, and kind of similar to Sammy, I ruled out mechanical engineering because it just didn't sound, I tried to picture myself working with each of these things. So like mechanical engineering with like gears, and working on, for me, I was thinking about cars, and that sort of thing just like doesn't interest me at all. And chemical and biological and electrical are too small, and I can't see it, and that doesn't work for me either. So I just kind of settled into civil and on a whim, and I really have loved it. I can't see myself doing any other type of engineering now. And one of the things that I realized, I came in thinking maybe like buildings and structures, architecture related things would be what I wanted to do. But I realized as I worked through my degree and also my minor in sustainability that water is a huge deal, especially out here in the West. There's a lot of issues with how water is. I mean, we just have so limited supply of water, and so it's a really big thing. And so I kind of found this niche of civil engineering that I didn't think was going to be something that I was interested in, and so that's exciting.
Awesome. Thank you for your responses, everyone. Yeah, we can just go ahead and open the floor up. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
Katie, I'm actually gonna have Caitlin introduce herself too. She is, she is one of our new civil and environmental engineering student ambassadors. So Caitlin, go ahead and introduce yourself and answer the question, please.
Alrighty, so yeah, my name is Caitlin. I'm a brand new civil environmental engineering ambassador. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. So originally I wasn't sure what I wanted to go to school for. I figured some type of engineering, just because like my dad was computer science, my grandpa's engineering, like mechanical and electrical. So I was like, well, the people in my family that do go to college go for engineering or something smart. So I can't break the trend, right? So every school I applied for a different type of engineering. And I was originally supposed to go out of state to Cal Poly, and then I had the sad realization of student loans exist and are a thing, and why would I do that to myself, And so then I was stuck, or not stuck. I got to choose between CU, Mines, and CSU. And after touring all of them and talking to friends that go to all three schools, kind of realized CSU was the place to be. And so I originally started out here as environmental engineering and recently actually switched to civil. And I switched to civil just because I like the structural side of everything a lot more, and I find it to be a lot more interesting and it clicks. So I did take OChem and pass it for some reason because you have to do that for environmental, but now I'm civil. So who knows what I'll actually end up sticking with. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry about that, Caitlin. I didn't recognize you, but yeah, exciting to have you on board. So one of the questions we have is how realistic or easy is it to major in civil or environmental engineering and get a second major or minor from another college at CSU? So Kayla, I'm not sure what minor your college is in, but my minor, international development, is not related to STEM at all. And I'll only be here an extra semester. My extra semester, I won't even be a full-time student. So I definitely could have gotten it done in 4 years. But also working jobs and internships, and I try to have a social life. I just extended it to 4.5 years. It definitely just depends on the major or minor you're looking at. Some will complement the curriculum really nicely and have some overlap. So for example, I took a class last semester as an engineering technical elective called Water Engineering and International Development, and that was able to count for my major and my minor. So I had less classes to take. So it definitely depends on the major or minor you're looking at. You can also minor in environmental engineering. Environmental engineering is one of the 2 engineering disciplines that you can have a minor in. So that's an option as well. I don't know if you have any specific majors or minors that you've been looking at, but yeah, it definitely just depends on the curriculum, really.
Yeah, I just want to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
No, Kayla, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to echo everything that Katie said. My minor also is not related to STEM. And so there was only kind of similar to Katie, there was one class that I could take for my sustainability minor that overlapped and gave me credit for both my minor and my major. I am technically, I started in fall of 2016 and I'm graduating in spring of 2021. So I've been here for 5 years. But I only did one extra semester. And the reason I did that is because I just wanted to give myself, similar to Katie again, a little more wiggle room. I've had friends that have done this minor and fit it into 4 years. And I think they might have done 1 or 2 summer classes just to give themselves a little bit more ease during the semester, so they're not fully loaded credit-wise. But one of the things that I did was in those 4.5 semesters that I've been here, one of them I took off and I did like I did the Disney college program. So I went down to Florida and worked in Disney World and just took a semester off. And so it actually worked out really nicely and put me in so that I could finish in around and even 5 years.
The only thing I was just going to add is that adding a major, second major, or specifically a second minor is really can be really beneficial, but like Katie and Kayla, it tends to add some time. As far as overlapping classes, there's always a chance that you can get more than just one class to overlap depending on the minor that you choose. So that's where I come in to help with advising. So if you look at the curriculum and it doesn't match up perfectly, like, don't be discouraged. Keep those things always in mind, especially when you do get here, and talk to me and mention it, and then we can work through things. But it's a great opportunity to have a good minor.
Awesome. Yeah, and I see that Michelle said that she's considering minoring in fish and wildlife conservation biology, and we have quite a few students who are minoring in that. That's a pretty popular one within environmental engineering specifically.
And I'll
and
just
for civil engineer, for civil engineers,
I'll
just say,
I was gonna slightly go off topic, so you go first.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, for civil engineers, one of the biggest minors we have is construction management. So yeah, while the environmentals go towards fish and wildlife and water sustainability, civils tend to go towards civil or construction management or business even. So my 2 cents, yeah. I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just gonna add, for those of you in the call who are like, oh no, do I have to get a minor? Like, I don't know if I'm interested in that. That's okay too. Like, there are plenty of opportunities for students without a minor. I know Katie and Kayla are rock stars. They're going for it. And I definitely encourage you to do those things. But my freshman year, I was like, oh no, everybody's minoring in something. Maybe I should minor in something. And then I was like, maybe I should add construction management. And then I had a construction related internship and I was like, I don't like this at all. So definitely don't like pressure yourself to get a minor because everybody else is, unless you're super passionate about something and want to add it, in which case that's awesome.
Right. And it is also not something you have to decide in your first semester, your second semester, or your third semester. I mean, you can, for planning purposes, it would be good, but there is absolutely no pressure to make that decision, even in your first or even your second year. You can wait. So no pressure on that. And thank you, Sammy, for mentioning that.
Perfect. Well, yeah, if y'all have any more questions, just continue to put them in the chat. In the meantime, I'll ask, what was y'all's favorite and least favorite class you've taken so far? Sammy, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think my favorite class and my least favorite class really helped me to decide which aspect of civil engineering interests me the most. So kind of like Kayla, I walked into civil engineering thinking I was more interested in the structural side. And I took a lot of I really enjoyed the basic structural classes like structural analysis and statics and solids and dynamics and those things. So I was like, cool, right on the right track to do structural. And then I took fluid mechanics and I loved fluids. And that's kind of like one of those tougher classes that you either hate it or you love it. And I fell on the side of I loved it. And I was like, oh no, now I'm confused. Do I want to do water? And then I took concrete design, which even like people who aren't civil engineers are like, oh my gosh, that sounds awful. And I personally wasn't a huge fan of like concrete and steel design, but that was really helpful for me because it really solidified the fact that I wanted to go into more water. And I took it early enough where I knew that the tech electives that I was to take after that could all be related to water. So I wasn't, taking classes that ultimately at the end of the day wouldn't add towards like what I was interested in. So don't be scared. You might not love every single class that you take, but I think that's a good thing because it really helps you to narrow down what aspect of civil you're interested in.
Yeah, Sammy and I are very similar people, and so no one should get the impression that everyone in our department leans towards water and no one leans towards structures, because that's not the case at all. But I was thinking to myself as Sammy was talking, I was like, yeah, I think my favorite was also fluids, and my least favorite has been steel and concrete. But in a very similar way, it's been really helpful in figuring out, okay, like I feel pretty confident in a direction where I want to go, because especially my first couple of years, I mean, people would ask me, my family members would ask me, what do you want to do with civil engineering? And I didn't have a good answer for it. But now after taking those classes, I feel like I have a good direction.
Caitlin, you're a structures gal. Do you want to talk about
I was about to say now's
you're...
a good time for me to jump in because I switched from environmental to civil. So I'm only a second year, so I'm taking solids and dynamics right now. I'm still in like all those core classes. But what made me want to switch is, so I took OChem earlier than most people do. And granted, OChem I don't think is a good representation of environmental engineering as a whole, but I absolutely, I just did not enjoy that class and nothing clicked for me. And then I started, my favorite class this semester is materials of solids, I think is what the whole title is, the class. And that's like my favorite class I've ever taken, except for like Calc 2. I really liked that, but I'm weird. So yeah, so I really enjoyed that. But what officially made me want to do civil is I kind of found someone who, his name's Eric. He happens to be like one of the head people in the electrical engineering department, but his undergrad was in civil engineering. And after having a lot of conversations with him about it, he was like, it sounds like civil is more for you, especially since I like the structural stuff, that's what clicks for me a lot more easily. And so, yeah, I still have a lot of time where I can be like environmental, civil, I don't know, but definitely civil is what I want to do. Yeah. And someone in the chat, I can go ahead and answer this. Do we have anyone else that still needs to jump in and share?
Oh, go ahead. Y'all covered everything.
Okay, cool. So it looks like what kinds of careers are y'all thinking of going into? So for me, I'm not quite sure. I'm still pretty new to the engineering game. I haven't had an internship or anything yet, just because this is my second year. So, I'm not sure, but I'm sure everyone else has a pretty solid answer for that.
Yeah, so I can answer that. I'm going into water resources. So I had a past internship with kind of in agricultural and water resources engineering. It's actually what my senior design project is on, which Sammy is also a part of. So we can talk a little bit about that later. And I just absolutely loved it. I had an internship in the past that didn't love as much. And so, yeah, it definitely helped me to figure out that water resources was where I wanted to be. Like I mentioned, I'm from Bakersfield, California. So if y'all look on the back of any of your pistachios or carrots or oranges, literally anything, that's my town. So water has been super important, and agricultural engineering and water resources just kind of fit as my area of expertise. So that's what I've been focusing on. And then with international development, I'm hoping to continue my international trips with engineering. So I've been, like I said, I've been abroad quite a few times, like building a well in Africa and just disaster relief projects in other countries. So hopefully I'll find a way to continue my traveling and engineering at the same time.
I can go next. And I can kind of tie in to the second question about your experience with internships as well, because I believe that internships are a really great way to narrow down what you want to do. And has a lot of perks. You get paid. It gives you something to do during the summer, so you feel useful. You learn more about your industry, and you either learn what you love or you learn what you hate, which are both really great things to have in your back pocket as you move through your college experience. So my first internship was with a really big engineering construction firm called Kiewit that you may have heard of. Our like namesake for the College of Engineering, Walter Scott Jr., was a previous CEO. So they have a lot of internships that they give to CSU students. So I was doing a lot of like project management, project controls on a lot of these really awesome, huge projects in the Seattle area where I got to work, which was super fun. And there are aspects of it that I liked and aspects that I didn't like. I really liked kind of the big company corporation having projects all over the world sort of aspect of it, but I didn't particularly love like the project management, all the construction management that goes into it. So I had that tucked in my back pocket. And then my internship that I had last summer, which was more remote because of COVID, was with another pretty big engineering firm where I worked half the summer in the transportation engineering group and half the summer in the water resources group. Learned that I like the water resources group a whole lot more. One of our biggest projects was working on a kind of a drainage canal that brought an entire neighborhood out of a flood zone so that they could have lower rates on their flood insurance. So they're definitely thanking us for that. And then that made me realize even more that I wanted to go into water, and then I wanted to help people, and I was interested in like flood water management, and also water supply kind of goes into that as well. But this summer, which kind of like leads into what I think I really want to do, is throughout college, I really liked the idea of using engineering for humanitarian work. That was what initially prompted me to choose civil engineering, kind of similar to Katie. And I've also like found my faith in college. So I think that's really centered in on like why I want to help people and like why it's so important to love people and help those who are in some situations that we probably can't even like picture. So this summer, I just recently on Monday got an offer for an internship with this organization called Samaritan's Purse, which is on the nonprofit sector. So a little different, I'm switching it up, but it's still a pretty big organization that runs kind of like a corporation and has like different locations all over the world. They do a ton of different projects like medical related, engineering related, design related. So there's a lot of really awesome things they get to do. And I'll be working in their water and sanitation hygiene group and learning how to implement sanitation practices and water filtration systems and things like that, particularly in international areas experiencing some sort of trauma like earthquakes or floods or things like that. So that's really cool. And that's hopefully what I would like to go into. And most likely next year I'll be staying at CSU for grad school, and they have a particular specialization for water resources and international development, which I think really pairs everything I want to do perfectly together. So it's super exciting.
Sammy, can you talk a little bit about how you got those internships and how you found them?
Yeah, absolutely. So CSU has some really great career resources. So the Engineering Success Center is the hub for all of that. And many of your high schools probably have some sort of career center that helps you with like your college applications, or maybe that's where your advisor's office is and things like that. Same with college. So there's a whole college career center, but we're special. So we get a specific engineering career center, and we get our very own engineering career fair, whereas the rest of the university typically shares a big old career fair. So just another reason why engineering is so special. And there's lots of resources like resume reviews, mock interviews, just to make sure that you're ready to go into the career fair. And for those of you who have never been to a career fair before, it at CSU happens twice a year, once in the fall, one in the spring. And you go into this big hotel lobby, typically, this is non-COVID times. And you walk around to different booths, talk to different recruiters, get your name out there, hand them your resume, and they can set up an interview with you. So that's how I got both my internships, was through the career fair and also through some additional events that allowed me to network a little bit prior to that. So definitely would recommend going to career fairs. Even now during COVID, we have our career fairs virtually on Handshake, where you can schedule one-on-one appointments to talk with recruiters, or you can register for an overall information session just to learn more about a company. But I would definitely recommend going to those even as early as your freshman year. I know a lot of people get internships after their freshman year. And even if you don't, you still kind of have a foot in the door and know more about a company and like who you might be interested in working for as you move forward. But networking is key. Take advantage of those career resources, do some research on companies that you might be interested in working for, and like utilize your resources. If your friend works there, ask them about it. If you have like a parent or a friend's parent or somebody that works there, get as much info as you can. And there are lots of civil companies. I think civil is probably the most represented major at the career fair, at least from my observation, but that might be biased because I'm kind of looking for it. But that's what I've noticed. So job security is great. And I, again, would definitely recommend internships.
Awesome, thank you. And I was just going to say, I got my internship from Shannon. So as your advisor, she will be sending out like so many emails about industry leaders, emailing her with job applications and internships, and because they want to recruit CSU students. So it was something that she had just forwarded through. I looked at the attachments and said, oh, this sounds interesting. And I applied and got it. So definitely like be on top of those emails because it can be some good stuff.
Yeah, I've had one internship, and I got that because that particular company specifically reached out to CSU. It wasn't through a career fair, but it was in December of one of my years here, and they reached out looking for students to intern for them. And so I kind of went through the college, helped, gather applicants and send in their way. And that's how I ended up getting my internship, which was really, really cool. And that company that I interned with, I did transportation engineering. So I was on a roadway design team, and it was cool. It wasn't something that was like super exciting to me, but I did really enjoy it. And I got a lot of really good experience. And then that company, I'm actually going back and working for them again full time. So I've accepted a job there, which was also really cool and very exciting. And I expressed interest to them that I really wanted to focus in water. And so I'll be doing a little bit more like water and drainage work, still within the greater transportation realm, which I understand, there's all these different small niches within civil and environmental engineering. And just, I guess, a general comment about that is that none of them are isolated in the industry. Once you graduate, anywhere that you work, you're going to be working with all sorts of people specializing in all sorts of things. So don't feel like you need to commit to one specialty, or you need to decide, okay, by my junior year, I know I want to do water, or I'm going to do structures, because you have a lot of freedom to move around and explore. So.
Yeah, I have one thing to add to that too, just at the mention of all these different specializations. I know that when I walked into civil, I had no idea like what all the different aspects of it you could do were. So a little illustration that I always use during like our civil and environmental info sessions is that our department is all kind of about, if you picture yourself landing on a stranded island, like a desert island, and you need to make it inhabitable, what things you need to create to do that. So you're gonna obviously need a place to live. So you'll need buildings. We've talked a lot about structures already. You want to make sure that you're building those things on like solid ground, so it's not gonna sink or anything like that. And that kind of goes along with geotechnical engineering, which is about like foundations and slope stability and making sure there aren't like landslides and all these crazy things. And then you're also going to need to have water. We've talked a lot about water transported to these facilities. So you'll need like utilities. You'll need to make sure that that water is clean and treated well. You need to know what to do with your wastewater, because it's going to happen. Like, it's gross, but it's very necessary. And then you'll also need a way to get from one place to the next. So you'll need transportation. So when you're thinking about all the different things that you can do within civil and environmental, just think of those really like, I don't want to say basic, but kind of basic, like fundamental things that you need when you're building a society from the ground up.
Awesome, thank you. And then another question was, what percentage of civil environmental engineering majors are able to find internships? So I'm not sure the exact percentage for civil environmental engineering students, but about 90% of students in the College of Engineering complete at least one or more internships before they graduate. So, but yeah, again, like Sammy said, civil environmental engineers, job security is pretty good for us. And then are any of you a part of the honors college? So I know a couple.
I'm a part of the Honors College, and I know for sure Sammy is as well. And I would highly recommend, highly recommend joining the honors program if that's something that you're interested in doing. I found a lot of benefits from being in the honors program. For one, you get smaller class sizes. So everyone has to take what's called all university core curriculum classes, which are like your basic history and English sort of classes. And if you're in the honors program, you get to take special, not special, but just classes that are specifically through the honors program that are small. So 15 to 20 students at a maximum. They're all discussion based. And they're about really cool things. I've taken classes on sustainability. I've taken classes on dance and the history of dance, which is cool. Taking classes on art and murder and how they're connected. Just like really interesting classes that you would never think otherwise. So I think that's awesome. And it's just another community, similar to how the College of Engineering, I really feel like is a community and our department is a community. The honors program is just another community of people that you can join and have that resource and be a part of. So Sammy, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I think you definitely laid out the logistics of the honors program really well. I've also enjoyed it. Some people enjoy it, some people don't. So it's important to like kind of know how it works and like know that it fits with your learning style. So the learning style for honors is like pretty seminar based small classes. So rather than like a lecture where you go in, absorb information and take a test, you're more in a class of like 20 people, you're talking, you're discussing, you're leading discussions, you are giving speeches, you're writing papers. So it is definitely a little bit different than your normal engineering classes are, but I've found it very interesting. The topics are very kind of like very different from what I would take as an engineering student, but they help to put them in like a new light. So right now I'm taking a class, an honor seminar about philanthropy, which doesn't seem like it's related to engineering, but I'm learning a lot kind of how like nonprofits work and where they get their money and what they do and like what are some pros and cons, which is helpful, at least for me now that I'm looking into like the nonprofit sector for work. So that's kind of nice. I just got back from volunteering at the food bank for class. So that's kind of fun. You get to take field trips. We went to like New Belgium Brewery for one of our field trips for my freshman seminar. So it is kind of fun. It's definitely a lot more like quirky and exciting than your typical core classes. Plus you are able to get an extra scholarship every year. You get to register for your classes first. So you'll get like your perfect schedule every semester. You also have the opportunity to live in the Academic Village Honors Residence Hall your first year. So I know one of the questions in the chat was about housing. So that's one of your options as an honors program student. I know that Kayla you lived in engineering your first year. I lived in the engineering academic village building my first year. I loved it. It's very similar to the honors style building. And there was another question that I saw in the chat about with regard to the honors program, how challenging is it to complete 2 senior theses, one for honors and one for engineering? That's a great question. And very clarifying point is that they are the same thing. So that's awesome for engineers as we get to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and our senior design project counts for our thesis. And the only additional thing you have to do is write like a formal proposal for your thesis, explaining your senior design project. And then I think you have to write like an individual contribution paper. But they're pretty much the same thing. So I'm taking 3 credits for senior design and 3 credits for my honors thesis right now. So 6 credits total, but it really only feels like 3. So this is the like lightest semester course load wise that I've had, which is really nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just going to add that engineering represents the most amount of students in the honors program. So they definitely realize and understand that us engineering students are busy, and they've worked our curriculum into the honors program pretty well. And then another question, which Sammy touched on, was which hall were you housed in freshman year? So I know all of us, I'm not sure about you, Caitlin, but we were all in Academic Village Engineering. I loved the experience. I definitely wouldn't have changed it. I loved being able to knock on my next door neighbor's door to ask for help on like calculus or physics or chemistry homework. That first year, all engineering students are taking calculus, physics, and chemistry. So it was just really nice to have that community. And there's so many perks to living in Academic Village. There's the first floor study hall or study rooms and computer labs. We're some of the only ones on campus with air conditioning. There's our own Wi-Fi router in our rooms. So when you're all not procrastinating and submitting your assignments at 11:59 p.m., it won't crash on you. So many perks to living in Academic Village Engineering. It's worth noting though that even if you don't live in Academic Village Engineering, if you're an engineering student, you still have access to that bottom floor. So you still have access to the computer labs, the tutoring that goes on every night, and all of the extra activities that are going on in there.
Yeah, and I know, never mind. I was about to bring you up, Caitlin, because Caitlin is an RA, so she has a good amount of knowledge on all of the housing options.
Oh yeah, so I'm an RA, which is a residential assistant, which means I just like live with the freshmen, and I'm actually in Corbett Hall, which is known for partying. And if you're gonna be an engineer, I don't think you can be very successful living in Corbett Hall, not gonna lie. So as a freshman, I did live in Academic Village Engineering, and everyone is so smart. You have someone that knows the answer to whatever question. So if for some reason you can't make it to your professor's office hour or tutoring, odds are literally your roommate is in the same class and can answer whatever question you have. So that's super nice. But in Corbett Hall, what I've noticed is in just my hall, there's one kid studying engineering, and he doesn't really get along with anyone there. And you know, when he's studying, it's hard because usually everyone is super loud and everything. Like last night, I had to knock on a lot of doors about quiet hours while he was studying for like a midterm and stuff. So, you know, if you want to do engineering, I think the best and easiest way to be successful with that as a new student here at CSU is to go live in like AV engineering or one of the like engineering, or I forget what it is, like RCL, RL. There's like engineering floors that you can live in, like Edward Hall and stuff like that. So I highly, highly recommend that if you're going to study engineering.
There is a new update for the next semester. So we are condensing all of the I forget the acronym, residential
ERLC, Engineering Residential
Yes.
Learning Community.
We are condensing all of those to just Academic Village Engineering. So there will no longer be engineering floors in Edwards or any other hall. And then another question, do you know anyone who applied to Academic Village and didn't get in? I personally don't. We are looking into those applications more intensely than usual. It's no longer first come, first serve basis. And that's just to ensure that everyone who like truly wants to be an engineer and be in that good community is there. I know quite a few students who had siblings who went to CSU that knew Academic Village was like the nicer residential learning community, and they applied for engineering and then switched out just so they could get into the Academic Village Engineering. So definitely just be intentional in those in that application. I believe it's just a short essay of what you think you could contribute to the community. If you would like us to look it over, we would definitely be happy to do that for you. But those are on a rolling basis. There's no real deadline for them, but definitely put some time into that essay.
Yeah, and I'll just add another disclaimer is I know people that lived all across campus. So obviously the majority of people that I know lived in Academic Village Engineering because that's where I live and that's sort of where my friend bases started. But there's a lot of people who are engineers or not engineers who have lived all across campus. There are a lot of really great residential hall options, and they definitely all have like their different perks. Academic Village is a little bit more expensive, so that if that is something that is a problem, there are definitely a lot of really awesome options. And like somebody said, you can still utilize all the resources in the engineering building. So we had some people coming over from across the intramural fields to come use our lab spaces, or most residence halls also have study areas on the end of either hall. If your roommate is like on a phone call or something, there are lots of ways to like find your quiet space and find like where you study the best. So I wouldn't feel like you absolutely like have to live in Academic Village. I of course recommend it because I'm biased and I live there, but I know there are plenty of other good options and that people have different preferences in a lot of different ways. But if you are interested, I would definitely recommend filling out that application and checking it out. But if not, that's also totally okay and definitely up to you.
Yeah, just to like kind of add to that, I have a few friends that intentionally chose not to live in Academic Village because their thought process was like, if I'm surrounded by people who are all in my, like, they just wanted a little bit more diversity in the people that they met freshman year. And so if you're living in Academic Village, I mean, you're living with the people that you're also probably studying with, that you're also probably in the same classes with, which for a lot of people is helpful. And for other people, it's just like to have space and to just have different people for different aspects of their life is more ideal. So I do know a couple of people that intentionally did not choose to live in any of the engineering dorms, or I guess just Academic Village for that reason.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you guys for touching on that. So we can go back up. Oh, we have another question. How does Academic Village compare to Edwards Hall? So the main difference is the style, the suite style. So Academic Village, you have your one roommate and you share a bathroom. And I believe Edwards is community style. Yeah, community style. So there's a large bathroom with however many showers at the end of the hall. So it's really just your preference and what type of experience you're looking to have that first year. But yeah, definitely perks to everything, like Kayla and Sammy were saying.
I noticed another question that we missed a little while back about like, what do you do for, or what do you do in your free time if you have any? So maybe we can all chime in a little bit about what the workload is like. Do you have free time? If you do, how do you spend it? Because obviously we all love civil engineering, but that's just like what we're studying. It doesn't necessarily have to be our whole lives. So does anyone want to kick that off?
Sure, I can. So I recently got into rock climbing like 4-ish months ago. Yeah. And so that has kind of taken over like all of my free time. So I'm currently in 16 credits and I cram all of my homework into 2 or 3 days and all of my lectures because most of them are asynchronous lectures. And then I spend the other days climbing or doing something else, typically climbing with the snow. I can't really do that outdoors as much. Um, Most people I know don't do it like this, but if you really wanted to cram everything in so that you have a lot more free time, I think with online classes, it's kind of easier to do. Once everything does go back to in person, though, you definitely have to plan your time out a lot better because you do have lectures to attend and they may not be posted on Canvas or like online anywhere for you to watch later. I just am lucky enough where I can watch my lectures from wherever, whenever. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead, Kayla. I would just say my biggest piece of advice that I always give students is to find what time of day that you work best in order to maximize like your free time and doing things that you like enjoy. Because yeah, engineering can get hard and overwhelming. So it's really nice to have those breaks and still keep continuing to do those other activities outside of engineering that you still enjoy. So yeah, definitely find what time of day you work best and your brain is functioning at its highest capacity and really capitalize on that. For me, that's definitely the morning. I would much rather wake up at 4:30 in the morning to finish homework or continue studying than stay up until like 11 p.m. or midnight to do homework. My brain just shuts off like after 8 p.m. If there's something left to do, like it's not getting done. So I would much rather do stuff in the morning. And so because of that, I usually don't have anything like left to do after dinner time. And so I feel like I have a lot more free time than my friends because I have my evenings open for like intramural sports or hanging out or doing whatever I want. Whereas they're still doing homework into the evenings, but they also sleep in later than me. So it definitely depends. But yeah, find what time of day you work best and really capitalize on that. And yeah, time management is everything in engineering.
Yeah, for me, I've tried the cramming technique and to just get everything done in like a few days, or just on the weekdays. That doesn't work for me. And so what I've settled on is I just do a little bit every day of the week. Sometimes I'll try and take like Saturdays completely off, but I'll do a little bit on Fridays, a little bit on Sundays. But what I've really loved to do with my free time recently is just kind of wander around Fort Collins and campus. So when I find like that I have an evening free or a morning free, something like that, there's lots of really cool places around Fort Collins that you can go to. So I turned 21, I guess, over a year ago now, but there's a ton of breweries in Fort Collins, which is something that I've really enjoyed looking into and visiting later in my college life. And then earlier, I mean, there's coffee shops everywhere. There's cute like little stores and just places to walk around in Fort Collins, and then up at Horsetooth Reservoir, which is like 15 minutes away. So that's kind of tucked up a little bit into the mountains. And so you can go up there if you like to hike or paddleboard during the summertime or swim. You have all these options for just little things. So for me, I just try and find something that I can do a couple hours a day. And that's been like, those little things have been my favorite things to do.
And I am just going to apologize in front of 12 witnesses that I am part of the reason Kayla can't just put her work into 3 days because I give her a lot to do as an ambassador. Just saying.
Yeah, I would just say that if you're trying, a lot of people ask like, how much do you study or like how many hours a week? And at least in my experience, I've always felt like they call it full-time student for a reason because it's kind of like a full-time job. So especially when we were on campus, I would probably spend like 40-ish hours a week doing like school plus my ambassador job plus studying. So I would be on campus for a long time, just kind of cranking things out. And like Katie said, having those evenings free. And now that things are online, it's a little bit more flexible. So I like got brunch yesterday morning and I actually got brunch again today. So I've been doing my fun things in the morning and work in the afternoon. But I have found that I have a good amount of free time, especially in the last semester of my senior year, just because of how things worked out. But you just have to kind of like ride the waves. And when you have a really busy week with 3 midterms and a paper, like it happens. A week is only 7 days. It'll be over. You can do it. And then the next week, maybe you'll have a little bit more time to relax. So definitely don't expect it to just be like easy peasy the whole way through, but also just don't expect to like grind and wear yourself out and get burnt out, because that isn't exactly the case either. It really does come in waves. There's a lot of room to have fun. I've also been rock climbing a lot, Caitlin, and Kayla, you said you almost always take Saturdays totally off, and I've made a habit of doing that as well, just because I think it's really good for your mental health to like kind of remind yourself of, you know, there's more to life outside of school, and I don't need to be constantly just like stressing out about it all the time. It's going to be okay. So yeah, don't be super stressed about it, but also don't expect it to be easy peasy all the time.
Right. And can I just add, to kind of bring it back full circle, as an advisor, that is something that I tell my students, especially when they want to add a minor or a second major. Be okay with taking 4.5 to 5 years, as long as you leave some time, right? If you try and do all of it in 4 years and you're 18 credits, you're working, and you don't have any time for yourself, it's not going to be a fun experience. And so you have to, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Move it out, you know, and make some room so that you get all of the experiences of college at the same time.
Let's see, are there any last minute questions? I can't remember, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but does this session technically end at 3:50? Okay, great. If anybody has any last minute questions, we can definitely stick around for a couple minutes more. But if not, feel free to head out, you know, go take a bathroom break. I know Katie and I are doing the virtual tour for the civil engineering department specifically right after this, starting at 4. So we'll hope to see you there if you are registered for that. But yeah, definitely feel free to ask us questions. Katie just threw her email in the chat, and I'll also throw the ambassador email in the chat. So if there's anything else that pops up, you can definitely reach out to us, and we'll be happy to continue to talk with you about civil and environmental engineering specifically, or we can just continue to talk more about fun things to do in Fort Collins, because we love to chat about that as well. But thank you all so much for coming, and have a great night.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, of
Sammy,
course.
Sammy, did you see that I just sent you?
Yep, we got it.
Okay. I would love to be there, but we have a